Welcome to the Ranchonomics podcast, where we empower you to build a better ranch and transform your operations into a thriving business. I'm your host, John Haskell. Let's get started. Good morning and welcome to the Ranchonomics podcast. This is John Haskell, and I'm honored today to be joined by Dr. David Kohl. Dr. David Kohl is a very important figure in our business. He was introduced to me, or his work was anyway, by Walter Lynn. And I am very excited to have him here today. And we are going to talk about things that make ranches successful. Dr. Kohl, would you give kind of an introduction, a little bit of your background here before we get started? Then we'll jump in.
Sure. I'm Dave Kohl from Virginia Tech. I was a professor here and up at Cornell for a number of years, taught over 10,000 students. Do a little bit of traveling. This year I've been in 22 states, done some podcasts in Canada, speaking to farmers and ranchers and lenders and agribusiness people. Also, I'll be in the hayfields this afternoon. We have a cow-calf hay operation and wish we had more cow-calves.
Especially this year, yeah.
We also have a dairy creamery, and it's just hit its 25th year in business. We go just the opposite of the big companies. We sell our milk in the old-fashioned glass bottle, and we sell premium ice cream, eggnog, and custard during the holiday period. And it was started by a 27-year-old and a 42-year-old. I was asked to come in. It was fledgling after about 2 or 3 years, and we got her turned around, and now we're in our 25th year. We sell, milk ice cream in 18 states and various stores. So I come to you as an academic, but a traveler and also a person who has had to sign on an $8 million loan. And so that's why I have a few gray hairs up here.
Good. And that does distinguish you from a lot of the people we talk to from universities, is having practical experience makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Changes your perspective. Good. All right. So let's jump in. You have a lot of material available online. You speak, like you said, all over the place. You've done lots of good work there. And I would like to start with, what are the most successful farmers and ranchers doing that you see? You look all over the country. What do you see as common patterns that help people be successful?
I think, and it's not in importance or order, but here are some of the commonalities I frequently see. Number one, they take ownership of their numbers. That is real critical. In other words, they will develop a cash flow. And oftentimes it's a monthly or quarterly cash flow. And I was challenged by a rancher up in Montana. I said, well, I only sell my cattle once a year or twice a year. Why do I need a monthly or quarterly cash flow? Well, your expenses are throughout the year. And he kind of understood that. If you really think about it, that cash flow plan, those cash budgets, those enterprise budgets are so critical because it's 80% of a business plan. Because one of the things that I often will see, people will have an operational plan that backs up their cash flow plan. Here's my production, here's my cost, here's the flow of income, cost, et cetera, et cetera. That ownership of the numbers. And here's the key. The key is you just don't develop it for your lender. You develop it for yourself. And I call it the REM factor, John. In other words, do you respond? Do you execute? And do you monitor it? In other words, do you pull it out and occasionally, hey, let's see how we're progressing throughout the year. At our creamery, we do it weekly. Of course, you don't have to do it weekly. It's been one of our best management practices, to be very candid, because we're watching trends on a weekly basis. I think another element, I talked about the operational plan. The real successful farmer and rancher, they manage the controllables and manage around the uncontrollables. Look, today's environment is designed to get your energy unfocused. All the stuff that's coming out of the White House or out of Beijing or Moscow or wherever it is, I find successful farmers and ranchers, they really know their North Star, their compass. And one of the keys is, it's a simplistic little thing, is write down your goals. And I know some of your folks listening to this will roll their eyes. But if you think about it, 80% of Americans have no goals. 16% have the goals and they keep them up in their mind. Oftentimes that's grandpa and grandma, mom and dad. Only 4% write them down. And we found it very, very critical because it helps you maintain that focus. And one of the things in goal setting, of course, you have your short term, you have your long term, but I also think it's very important to have your business, family, and personal goals. And to balance it out, mental, physical, and spiritual goals. And I call it kind of the
Speaking
circle
my
of life.
language, baby. This is great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I don't care. I used to be a basketball coach. Whether you're coaching basketball or working in a business, that goal setting really helps channel your energy, and that's the key. We were talking a little bit before the podcast. I just attended Warren Buffett's, Berkshire Hathaway, and I've been going the past couple of years. It's a long story, but I was on the floor when he announced his retirement. But he said something in his 4 hours of question and answer. And I want you to think about this. Here's a 94-year-old gentleman
That guy
drinking
is unbelievable. Yeah. Drinking Coke one after the other, right?
the cherry Coke and the regular Coke. And he goes, don't do this, but I live to be 94. But he said something that was very important. He says successful businesses and investors are going to have behavioral acuity. In other words, a behavioral mindset acuity. And he says part of that objectivity is being very, very goal focused. And so that's one, if you really want to be out there and lead the pack, it's a basic that's often overlooked. I was introduced it in FFA. I was introduced it in basketball in my youth. Is something that's I see that transforms the people across the industry.
Struggling to break into the tight-knit world of ranching? Connect, compete, and grow with our new networking platform. Real ranchers, real insights, real opportunities. Visit ranching.fyi and click forums.
I think another thing is we have more multiple enterprises. In other words, might have a cow-calf, might have a grain operation, or might have a side beef processing business. Doing enterprise cost budgets, very, very critical. Because what this does, John, it helps you allocate your time and your energy and money to where you get the biggest bang for the buck. In other words, what's contributing, what's actually taking away. And you have to be really careful because sometimes to launch a new enterprise, she'll drag a little bit for a few years and then it'll take off. It's like our creamery. First few years, it was kind of tough. But one of the things is once we got our brand created, and it wasn't a bunch of advertising, it was word of mouth, things kind of have taken off. Here's a big one. I'm worried about the beef industry right now. And you'd probably scowl at me. Well, why? Because the worst decisions are made in the best of times.
Oh, we agree on that 100%. Yes.
And John, what I have is the 60-30-10 principle in finance. What's the 60-30-10 principle? Take 60% of your profits, focus on efficiency first, growth second. Get better before you get bigger. And better is better before bigger is better. And one of the things that I really find is oftentimes we try to grow our way to profit, but we have to kind of balance that growth with that efficiency. Second, you've got to have that behavioral discipline that Buffett was talking about in building working capital. And you know what that's going to require? It's going to require paying income tax. And very few businesses go broke paying income tax. And don't get caught in the 5-to-1 trap. Not the 5-to-1 trap, but you spend $1 to save 20 cents.
To save 20 cents. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you burn up your working capital that puts you in financial jail for the next 3 years or 5 years, or the debt. And then the other 10%, life is short. And this is part of the business, family, personal, mental, physical, spiritual goals. Take 10%, still enjoy life. Where I find in the industry right now, we're making a lot of money in the beef industry. Sometimes that 10% becomes 50% or 70%. And we get lifestyle creep. So that will frequently happen. So having a profit plan, 60-30-10, I hope that'll be a takeaway. Here is the other thing that I am seeing across the industry is regenerative practices. Two components. Of course, we got regenerative practices as far as the resources, in other words, soil, water health, because if you got a healthy plant, you have a healthy animal, human being, and a healthy environment. But you also got to have regenerative practices for yourself. And that requires, everybody talks about mental health. Sometimes they don't talk about the physical health or the spiritual health, et cetera, et cetera. And I think there's a balance in there. And I think you have to be very deliberate on your educational events that you attend. Also, be careful of energy vampires. Who are those? People who destroy your energy. We see them in the news all the time now and different things. I'm not picking on the news, but I
think
am.
the news is an energy vampire, but okay.
Yeah, but we'll leave that alone. But
Yeah.
all joking aside, I think regenerative practices, and I know some people just roll their eyes. Oh, here he goes, soil and water health, etc. But regenerative practices for yourself, very, very critical. The other one is, I'm going to talk ranching right now, and I'm experiencing it right now. Practices that are age friendly. What am I
Right.
talking about?
Yep.
Age friendly? Livestock systems that are designed, breeding for docility, different things. Hey, there used to be a time I could go out and wrestle a steer, different things. Not anymore. And again, trying to balance that, what I call your natural resource base, with, making sure that all it takes is a cow coming after you, or, doing something stupid on the tractor when you're tired, which, yesterday I
We've
was
all
thinking
done.
about that.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
I was thinking about it yesterday. I says, I need to shut down, take a little bit of break off this. Very, very important. And then the final one is having a risk management plan. And that could be crop insurance and livestock insurance. It's interesting. I'm on with some of the livestock folks right now, and they said it's surprising the number of people that do not have and execute a risk management plan right now, anticipating the prices are going to go higher. And then I guess the final one is make sure you invest back into the community. Let's put it this way. You've experienced it. I've experienced it. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for 4-H and FFA. And, giving generosity back both in time and money or resources, fully realizing that success can be measured in dollars. One of the things is oftentimes, giving back to the community. That is very, very important. Never forget where you came from and the people that got you there. So, boy, that was a mouthful. I hope there were some nuggets that people could take away on that one.
That's fantastic. I love it. Thank you for listening. We're going to conclude part 1 of this interview today and continue next week. We look forward to seeing you then. Thank you for tuning into the Ranchonomics podcast. We hope this episode helped you win today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with a friend.